Oseo!
Oseo.
Cherokee greeting. Wave the great feather for the good of it. Continuing in extolling the Native American Inheritance Month of November. The way we inherit is our recognition, and when we have these recognitions, we are responsible. What are we responsible for? To move the boulder of goodness forward. Then we are Inyan Basalaheo Yate. Then we are the Standing Rock people, meaning we stand up for this earth. If you look over here, here's a little squirrel. In Cherokee, that is our inheritance. It's our continuum. Our continuum is insured for mutual of solidity, the long life happiness squirrel. The past for us is always present. I'm going to start off with a chant here. This would be the Coyote Genesis. Earth Woman and Sky Feather, they're up here, and they're smoking, and their smoking and their smoke is creating the earth. And while that smoke is creating the earth, Coyote is the first to appear. And he brings his stony knife to fix the mountains, and then the lightning, and then the rainbow, and you'll hear it that way. Coyote's first to come, aha, smoke is spreading, aha. He brings stony knife, aha, smoke is spreading, aha. He brings white lightning, aha, smoke is spreading, aha. He brings rainbow, aha, smoke is spreading, aha. Coyote first to come, aha, smoke is spreading, aha. He brings all things, aha, smoke is spreading, aha, 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 aha. Hey, there we go. So we can start out with something. I have these notable Native Americans. The first one that I want to bring up, and all these are just going to be, brief little bios, for the people that I have here. In the Cherokee education that I was given, next to Coyote, there is Decanaweda. Decanaweda, he lived up there in the northeast there, and at that time, the people that collectively had been called the Iroquois, they were in an internecine conflict, and that was going to extinguish them if they kept going that way. So that's where Decanaweda made his appearance. He is the peacemaker, and however that he, brought about a negotiation and peace. I think Handsome Lake figured into it. I think Hiawatha figured into it, and like that. But somehow he brought about peace with these people. And the adage that really originates with him, bury your hatchet. So there was a tree, a special tree, and that tree, under that tree, the people buried their, war axes, war hatchets, whatever they were. That's where that comes from, bury the hatchet when you have these conflicts. And then eventually this became, the Iroquois League, the Haudenosaunee. And the English Americans coming over, well, they encountered these people. Without going into a lot, but Benjamin Franklin, he was the older of these earlier Republicans, I would call them. He spent some time, in good graces, with the Iroquois, and from that he learned how that they managed, how they governed, and he formed what then became the United States. The emblem of the Iroquois League was the eagle, and so the adopted, they adopted the eagle as the emblem or symbol, you know, for this United States. So that we can start with a little bit, you know, like that. Dakanaweda. And in Native America, everybody is born with a spirit helper, or something comes with it. It's called Ajibal. It's a spirit soul thing, you know. So we can just call it animal helper. And that Dakanaweda had his. If you can come right over here and look at this here. I have an interesting looking cat person. And this was the Catwoman. Catwoman then was the spirit guide, helper, and sustenance for Dakanaweda. So I know people who love cats like to see that we also have cats, you know, in our culture. The next person I'm going to go to is over here. This is Tecumseh, and he appears around, you know, the 1800s. And by this time, of course, after 1776, the new Federated Republic of English Americans were becoming very aggressive, you know, and they were pushing out in different directions, you know, to overcome the indigenous people. So the indigenous people, the Native Americans, were having to cope with this. They tried all different things for coping with it. But notably, what we're resting on during that conflict, and people were fighting in every direction. The English were fighting, the French were fighting, the Cherokees, I mean, everybody's fighting somebody like that. So Tecumseh, he viewed that to unify, to bring the Native American nations together. And of course he used a, what do you call it, an image for that. If you have one arrow shaft, you know, you can break it in half. But if you bundle those arrow shafts together, you can't break them. And so that was, you know, the way that he was bringing about the unity of these people. Subsequently, when he was a Shawnee, that's why I want to say that, of the Shawnee Nation, and during a battle with these American forces, federal forces, I like to call them, you know, he disappeared. He believed that he was killed. Somebody saw a hawk fly over the battlefield, and they thought there went his spirit, and so he had that mystique. So with that note, you know, I want to introduce this book by Stephen Newcomb, Pagans in the Promised Land. Stephen Newcomb was also a column writer for the Indian Country Today that I had subscribed to for a long time. It went from newspaper to magazine, and now you can subscribe online. And at times I had given reports or references to his columns in my talks previously at Twigs. You know. So this is another very, very important book. Definitely he focuses on the federal Indian law policy, its foibles and other things. And just give you one little quote here in his introduction. It's my humble wish that this book will, in some small way, assist with that work and help facilitate those much needed reforms to rid this planet of the dominating mentality of Christendom, oppression, and exploitation. So it's brilliant, and he dedicates this book to, well, let me find it here. You get this on your camera, in honor of Tecumseh. So he is a Shawnee, a descendant of Tecumseh in this respect. Very, very important pieces. Published like 2007, 2008. I'm looking for the publisher. The Fulcrum paperback. Fulcrum, you know, so that you want to order that. The next thing I'm picking up from my opening chant, this is a stony knife. Coyote brings a stony knife. I showed this before, that this is an eolith, a dawn stone, meaning that somebody, a human, fashioned this to use for something. The datings for these are 800,000 years plus, like maybe into a million, that way. The way that they're dated is by, the strata that they're found in the ground, like geological dating. That's how old they are. And that we also have that the appearance of the buffalo, as we understand that animal, also appeared at that time. So can you go down here and look down here? What I've arranged in view of that, this is, I've shown it before, this is an eolith. And on that eolith I have affixed a person there who, so I can say, resembles who the first Turtle Islander people are here 800,000 years ago, who is making this stone. This stone is a very, very good leaf shape, I would call it there. And I have buffalo fur around it. And there in front of it, the people the Americans call Zuni are the Achui. The Achui, this is made of crushed turquoise with little carved animals around, and it has cornmeal in it. Life is a matter of roads, and so in the road that you want, the roads have guardians, and you want a guardian for this road, you can pinch some of that cornmeal there. And so that's what I have here, the guardian for this road that I'm presenting here. And alongside of it, you've seen this before, this is an ammonite, and this is a buffalo stone. And this stone was very revered or venerated to bring the buffalo, and this has come from the Blackfoot in that way. So we can get all of this going in this honorary way. So much of what I can point out as notables are men. They're men. Over here, below Tecumseh, I have Red Cloud. And Red Cloud at least was one of our leaders that wasn't killed. He lived a long life, and his woman partner was Little Owl. And I think that was a good sign why he lived a long time. And I can show you this book of Red Cloud. So here is his biography, and it was found in the 1990s, and he passed on around 1905. And here, the way he's pictured here would seem to be the way he usually appeared, because the photograph with the feathered bonnet on was not something he liked to wear, because he really wanted to show that he was totally in the interest of the people. He is of the Oglala nation. So wonderful, wonderful reading. And then over here, see, I have all of these females. This is the way to stand for it. There definitely were women who were outstanding all the time. But I don't have single pictures of them, so I'm putting all the female together. And here is an artist's rendition of White Buffalo Woman. There, see the white buffalo, and she's holding a pipe that she brought to the Lakota people. And there's the people here, and the white buffalo and the woman. So she, stands for very much, the deity, I think, the way we would say. And alongside of her here, I put this very tall figure to stand for, in the Apache people, white painted woman. And she is comparable very much the same as the Navajo changing woman, Atanaidlihe. And she's there, right at the beginning for the people, a kind of a genesis, and also for women, young women maidens who are initiated into womanhood, like the Canalda. And down here, this is a carved coyote here from the Seri people down here, and that means, that coyote is always enwombed in her there. And over here, this is a Hopi, Kachina mother, something to that effect. And what she's guarding here, this is the Papanu. This means the place where people emerged from the underworld into this world. So this is all to really represent the female sector of people. And up here that we have, I've shown before, this is Sitting Bull. He's a very great medicine man, and he had a vision that told him of the defeat of Custer and his army, and so forth. Unfortunately, he died tragically much later due to an attempt to arrest him because the authorities tried to blame him for the ghost dance movement, which he really had nothing to do with. Unfortunately, that's how he died there. Up above here, I put this up here, going in a sequence here. This is, I don't know how they do it, but this is an exact replica of a petroglyph carved into rock. It's featuring, a figure with deer horns, and maybe the gestures in his hands, signify something. But the main thing is that all over Turtle Island there are, thousands, who knows, of petroglyphs, and some of these definitely are legible, and some of them are denoting, a sacred site. I mean, there's all kinds of ways that they relate, but, there's a place in Arizona they call it Newspaper Rock, so you could kind of say all these petroglyphs are the newspaper reports of the people of this land here. Then I want to come over here to, this is Chief Joseph of the Nez Perce people. A movie is made about him and his attempt to lead his people out of the United States jurisdiction into Canada. Remember, the United States was the aggressor, becoming more ruthless and aggressive towards the people of this country. And people tried all kind of strategies, to deal with it. And he almost made it. He and his people almost made it to the Canadian border when the army and the general, I forget the actor that played that part, terrible. And so he had to surrender and is famous for his statement, "I will fight no more forever." Of course, being arrested by the army, they take everything away from you. And one of the things they took away is of interest. It was a square tablet that had cuneiform writing on it. That cuneiform writing came from Mesopotamia. I've seen a photo of it, but the army still has it in its custody there. So that's a very interesting relationship there. Let me go up here to this photo of the man that's known as Crazy Horse. And Tashunko Uriko is his name. And he survived some kind of a battle when he was young. I'm not sure if it was with the Americans or somebody else. But anyway, he retired into the wilderness and had this tremendous vision. And this vision, somehow pictured him with red feathers in his hair and lightning streaks on his face and his hair loose. And so he attired himself that way. And that he became, a leader. He's from the Ogala Lakota there. And this here, This is a Witkokone, I mean a war charm that he wore around his neck, and it was called Inyansan, meaning a white rock there, and that was his war medicine here. And this is the only photo that is known to have been taken of him. So he's definitely considered a great person. Somebody is still, I think, carving near Mount Rushmore a smaller mountain in, resemblance of him on a horse. I've seen a photo of it there. So that is him. And now here we can go down here to this photo. This photo is who the Americans call Geronimo, but better pronounced Geronimo because it's Spanish. Geronimo is named after Saint Jerome. The Mexicans named him that. Saint Jerome was the author of the Catholic Vulgate. So I don't really know what the connection is, but that's how he got named by the Mexicans. Guatale is his own name. And this may be a Edward Curtis photograph. And you can see here, he's wearing a turban, turban in Persian, a turban like that. And in all other pictures of him, he has some version of wearing this. So what's that about? In an autobiography of him, he uses a quote. I mean, there's a quote that appears, quote, I cannot believe that we are as worthless as they say, or then how would Yusin have us here? I'm stumbling there because the English translation is saying God. When I looked at the original manuscript, he spoke his own language through a interpreter who was, a relative of his, to the American who was writing all of this down. So I recognized that name Yusin. It's Turkish. And so I did a little bit more research that convinced me that this man here is speaking in a language or a dialect of Turkish. How is that? Well, the Turkish language is like the Indo-European language. You have these language families, so there's a language family. And who this would be of those people would be called the Turkoman. The Turkoman were these people, and still are, Eastern Afghanistan. Maybe some of them are even in the Taliban. It wouldn't be too far out of the way. And Uzbekistan and Turkestan, all these countries, that are on the western side of the Tarim Basin. And that's where it seems that these people have derived from. They did not come over the Bering Straits or any of that kind of thing. They came here on Chinese ships. And north of here, Palo Verde, I think it's called, there's kind of like a bay there. It has been discovered, anchors from Chinese ships. And Professor Moriarty, the San Diego archaeologist and professor at San Diego State, wrote a paper on those Chinese anchors that I have read. So it would certainly appear that people came here from the western side of the Pacific, and these people, and also the people known as the Navajo, have come from them. The Navajo seem to come from the opposite side of the Tarim Basin, meaning the east side, and that is called Khotan. And it is, legible that the roots of the Navajo language are also Turkestanic. And an evidence of that reported in Indian Country Today a couple of years ago now. A committee of Native Americans assembled together and went to the country of Turkey to set up, some commercial enterprise. And one of them is a Navajo woman, and in the article her name is published. She began to realize that she could understand the Turkish people speaking. And then she went to, the countryside, the rural area, and to her it looked like the rural people lived much the way that she saw the Navajo live in her own country. So all of this, gives you some idea there. And that, the, these people are collectively known as the Apache, and that's the name I'm going to be using. The word Apache seems to have first appeared in the Spanish maps touring the Southwest, where they're saying the Apache de Navajo. Apache was a criminal in Europe. I think it's a quasi-French word for criminal, something like Apache. And it's become a very abused word for these people. Apache means guardians of the lake. In the autobiography of Hieronymo, the cover is saying that he is a patriot warrior. These people did not, in concept or in language, ever use the word warrior. They are not warriors. They, in this case, Mexican soldiers had killed his wife. And so according to the law of his people, he could carry out a vendetta. That's what he was doing. He was a common man. He was not really a holy man or a chief at all. But when he began to enter into this kind of a conflict, vendetta, he showed amazing ingenuity, enough that one could think of him as a war shaman. So that is something of that. Now, back to Yusin. Yusin is a creatoress, or neuter creatoress. And here, when you look at this photo here, these are dancers that would be the Apache dancers. They're called Gan. Gan dancers, like G-A-H-A-N, I think. Gan dancers. And they're the envoys of Yusin. Yusin is all concerned with people and the affairs of people. So the Gan dancers, they are conveying to the people, the wishes or goodwill or guidance from Yusin, something like the sunspots on the sun. The sun is the way that she reaches us, talks to us through those sunspots. So the Gan dancers are like the sunspots of Yusin. So it's a wonderful old photograph. When I first came to Arizona years ago, these people actually greeted me. That was my first introduction. I had a cousin who was buried there at the San Carlos Reservation. So that gave me that connection there. Now from that, we'll go to this picture here. This I'm very, very proud of. This is known as, this post-mortem, Mangus Colorados. Mangus Colorados. He was leader of the Chicone, or the Chiricahua chief, and he's a holy man. He was a huge man. He was 6'6", like that. And Hieronymo had said in his autobiography, the greatest wrong that the Americans ever did to the Indians was their murder of Mangus Colorados. He was in the custody in the fort, totally unarmed, and the soldiers took to torture him and murder him, and then they beheaded him. And all of this has been documented. And that head, along with other times, other people's heads that were decapitated by army officers, were sent to the Smithsonian, where they languished in pickle jars, I would guess, like that. Well, very recently, with, I don't know, was the government law or whatever, is repatriation. His head was repatriated back to his family in New Mexico. There is, I believe, I don't remember the name of it now, but a special kind of graveyard or cemetery, for him, because once that his head was rejoined with the rest of his torso, he could now complete, his journey to the other side here. And so this wonderful photograph here has very adroitly made this his turban red. The Colorado's part of his name meant that he had red sleeves, or he had a red shirt or something like that. And this seemed to be a signature of where he was from, in somewhere over there, we'll just say eastern Afghanistan, since we've heard so much from that country. And the artist, very carefully was able to conceal that his head had been severed this way. And here, these are a pair of owl feathers, and that these are the spirit bodies. They're called, true heart and true mind, like that. And they're spirit beings that guide us, and to guide us over the other side, the owl feathers. And so to go to that place through the veil of death, to a place of sanctity. And the owl there bids the spirit. In other words, basically they guard, are guarding, protect the spirit of the person there. And so the owl spirit, is saying, come here and come through my feathers. Come through my feathers into darkness without fear, is pretty much what she is bringing about there. And so to just say, a little bit more on the Geronimo, because I have here a song sung by him, translated, I think it was by his grandson. This is Geronimo's song. Oh, hale, oh, hale, through the air I fly, upon a cloud, toward the sky, far, 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 oh, hale, there to find the holy place. Ah, now the change comes over me, oh, hale, oh, hale. So he continues to be a touchstone of resistance, challenge, and question to the self-aggrandizing assumptions of the invaders and their disregard of the humanity here in our country. I think that's very important to remember him. Also, going along with that, you come down here to this eagle. In the Apache, I'm going to use the word Apache as much as I can to avoid the American word of Apache, because I don't like how they use it here. So here we have the eagle here. I would say the eagle and here, the buffalo are the two of the mainstays, of Native America. In the early time, long before people, there were monsters, they call them monsters, lurking about. And there was a particularly bad monster. And an eagle, he had this round rock, and he flew way, way, way up high. And he dropped this rock down, down, and hit that monster's head and knocked him out of commission, like that. So this white rock has become the eagle's oracle. The eagle's oracle. So you have to want to know, to ask this oracle. And so that still, is, a talisman. It's even used in a certain kind of folk game like that, like hide the bone here. So that's why I have this here. So it's very related, to the eagle, and the eagle as an oracle. So that gives me to start in with the eagle. And here I have this shield. So this way you can see the eagle, what it all means, here in Native America. And this is from, the teachings of Don Juan. It was the eagle's gift, I think. Eagle, There exists in the universe a gigantic force, a conglomerate of energy fields called the eagle. And that eagle grants sentience to all living beings. Any newborn being is given this sentiency by the eagle so that that being can enhance the quality of being aware in its living experiences in life. And at the end or term of its life, the sum of these experiences are returned to the eagle in full. So it's the quality in the life's experience that nourished the eagle for our guide and constancy for meaning. Therefore, the eagle is the quality of sentience, and awareness is its attribute. Wave the great feather. There. So with that, we can look up here at my centerpiece here, the gift of the eagle feather. And the way that we use the eagle feather is like a prayer, to the eagle, So we wave the feather. We are in a ritual context that extends our personality up there to Galunlati, to the eagle. So that's a beautiful picture there to show our meaning for that. And then to go with that, you can come over here. This, we call this a sand painting. It's made all with ingredients of the earth and is definitely Navajo, and the Navajo, I'm trying to say, the way of honoring the earth. So this is the mother of the eagle feathers here. The artist has signed his name Theo. I don't know any more about him, but it's very, very fine lines in all of this. So this would be the mother of the eagle feathers. And this feather is all you need to be potent, is the way we say it. And this I introduced last time, this parfleche. This is made to carry our special feathers in. That's what this is here. And so I'm going to finish with a poem here. And again, this is a poem by Mike Bond. They're Native American poems. He doesn't say what nation he's from, but his poems speak for themselves. So I'm going to read one of his poems here. It says a buffalo on it. Leaving Indian Caves, Montana. Let us have a final smoke in honor of this place and of the beauty that it shows despite the world's disgrace, and of the sanctity of life despite its sore abuse, and of the timelessness of time, the anguish of its use. Let us cast a final look of love about the yellowed rims, where in the sharp and tempered draws the daylight softly dims, where silent in the deeper grass the burnished antelope graze like sage and boulders across the tawny slope. Time has stolen life from us, although life perseveres. We fall away like waves of stone eroded by our years. And when each stone has vanished, and as the cliff recedes, nothing marks its former place, the absence that it feeds. Our skin, is it the air? Our souls, the grass? Truly, is the earth our heart, as from the earth we pass? Thank you.